Ladies and gentlemen, Friday night, Brooklyn, but Bodega Bible Talk. Let's go. Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? So I hope everyone is having a good Friday evening after having a most turbulent week. You know what I mean? And of course, I couldn't have this Friday with a better cavalcade of righteous gentlemen as you see before you. So let's first start off with my man, the Intercontinental Champion of Urban Apologetics, Chris Featherstone. What's going on, sir?
Yeah, probably people the place to be. I go by. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I'm gonna do my best, man. I'm mad. Okay.
Oh Lord.
Let's start off there. I'm disappointed, man. I'm disappointed. So I'll do my best. I was class clown in high school, so I'll do my best. I was voted class clown in high school, so I'll do my best to bring as much levity as possible, and that is just my cathartic way of expressing my anger in a more civilized manner. So that's my disclaimer tonight.
Great. And next up, let me swap you out for a minute. Pow. Oh, dang, I dropped everybody. Hold on.
You swapped them out permanently. Like
there we go.
Them out for good.
So we're gonna go right into Georgia, ATL, with my man, Servant of Christ. What's going on, sir?
Not much, man. Glad to be here with you guys talking about an important subject. I'm looking forward to a fruitful conversation and hopefully guiding more people to Christ in the midst of a dark time.
Yes, sir. And we're gonna head over down to the great state of Texas with my man MJ Jackson. What's going on with you, sir?
Oh, it's all good. I'm actually in Arkansas right now.
Oh, okay.
Getting a breather on the countryside, but it's all good. But look like it's getting ready to mix up back at home.
Crazy. Then of course up north from me, I guess, right? Is it south? Is VA south from New York or up north? Always get that confused.
Oh, Virginia? Yeah, we're south. Yeah,
south, right? So to VA,
top of the south, man.
Top of the south. Ooh, I like that. Top of the south. VA in the building. True ID, Mr. Adam Coleman. What's going on, sir?
Doing well, man. Like you said, it was a turbulent week. You know what I'm saying? And obviously we got a lot to talk about tonight. But I'm thankful that my family's healthy. You know what I'm saying? We still doing our thing out here. So thank God for that. And also, I just surpassed 5,000 subscribers. So I just got that out right before it came on, man. Nice. And I'm eating a nice bowl. As you know, I'm going vegetarian, man. So I got my nice bowl. I'm not doing pizza tonight. I got my bowl of stir fry, my tofu stir fry going on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to get my life right here, man.
I feel you. And over here, Thomas White's already complaining. This better be good. You're interrupting a concert I was at. My bad, Thomas. We interrupted your life. I'm sorry. This guy.
That must have been a pretty loud ding on the phone to kind of interrupt the concert.
I know, right? He stopped the orchestra or the DJ. Be like, chill. It's the bodega. Chill. So we got my man Zayas
in the basement. That's what's happening.
Big up to my man Manny Vids. He's been vegan for 3.5 years. Actually, he's the one that got me into this. So
nice.
Yeah, that's my guy right there. So now we're going to all the way to Dayton. My man, the myth, the legend, the pastor, the just good guy in general. CMB, the ambassador.
What's up, everybody? Party people in the chat. What's good? Everybody all right?
Chillin'. Adam trying to get skinny in these apologetic streets.
Yeah, I was joking. I was like, man, I started out doing apologetics looking like Umar Johnson. I'm gonna end up looking like Brother Polite after a while, man.
Oh, chill. Never that. Out here selling people all sorts of weird information. You know what I mean? Did I miss anyone?
I'm just talking about the weight loss, though. Just the weight loss.
Yeah, I hope so. Of course, we got Mr. Dr. Detroit, apologist in Detroit, is in the building. What's going on, sir?
What's going on? Oh, you didn't miss anybody. You didn't miss anybody.
Oh, stop.
It was Detroit's pretty cultured, man. As far as I know, if there is a protest, I wasn't invited. So.
Oh, Lord.
I wouldn't go if I was, just for the record.
Yeah, it's kind of dicey out there.
Yeah.
Kind of dicey out there.
Man,
So,
I saw, my boy posted going down the street in Brooklyn, in his neighborhood. Looked like about 700 people walking down the street.
yeah, they had a big protest over at Barclays, downtown Brooklyn today. So, yeah. So, as always, I'd like to see what's going on in your perspective, locales, when it comes to this corona. So, let's start with Detroit. What's going on with the coronavirus situation out there, bro?
We slowly easing up on and relaxing. The governor's slowly relaxing some of the rules, and people are. It's still it's extended. The stay at home is extended to June the 15th or something like that.
Okay.
It's still recommended that everybody wear masks, but there's a lot more people outside. It's been warm. Had a couple 90-degree days, so and no spikes. So it seems like everything.
Good. That's the important thing. All right, my man MJ Jackson. What's going on? Well, I mean, you're in Arkansas, but what's been the latest in Texas when it comes to the Rona?
I mean, cases are going up, but they're opening more stuff up.
Yeah, you guys are real smart over there. Let me tell you.
Yeah, they
you got some real geniuses over there, buddy.
People wish that this coronavirus would go away just as much as they wish racism would go away. But I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how much you wish something would go away. You got to deal with it and deal with it using the organ that God gave you to deal with it. So
absolutely,
yeah, real smart.
Real smart. So what's going on in VA, Adam, with the Rona?
Yeah, man. So actually a couple of days ago, the governor issued another order where if you're going to be out in public, like, you have to wear a mask. So before it was kind of more of an advisory type of thing. Like now it's supposed to be like an executive order. So they're trying to open up, and I think that they're trying to open up more and then institute the mandatory mask thing so that we can open up more. Because I think we're supposed to be opening up like on the 28th. I don't know if they really followed through on that, but June 10th is the latest. So trying to take steps. My understanding is that we did have a spike not too long ago. I'm not sure exactly where it stands now, but I'm just staying out the way of it, man. I mean, fortunately, I live in an area where we haven't been too heavily hit. Relative to some other areas, so I'm still kind of staying out the way and praying, man, praying.
Right. CMB, what's going on in Dayton?
It's pretty much the same. Like I said, it's been a slow roll open. In Ohio, more of the restaurants are open now. Like they got their social distancing stuff they do there. So like, every other table, one person was telling me, me and my wife, we ain't going out nowhere. Like not for real, not for now. Anyway, but that sort of thing is going on as well. So like healthcare, it's about the same. They've got elective surgeries starting back up. Like some more of the kids' hospitals are doing more outpatient stuff now on the next week or two. So things are kind of opening up a little bit, but still being wise in what we're doing over here too, man. But you can't unring the bell sometimes.
Cool. And SOC, what's going on by you?
Everything's open. Nobody cares. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
No, but I mean, it's pretty much wide open here in Georgia. People are pretty kind of relaxed. Me and my wife, we're staying home. We're being safe. But yeah, it's pretty relaxed over here, man.
Cool. For us, we've done phase 1, and now certain parts of the state will be entering phase 2, which is office services. So they're gonna start allowing people to go back to their office space, but only at 50% of the population of the company. No sharing of food. No, going to the community breakfast nook. We can't do that. What I mean, everybody gotta be masked up. But it's good. I mean, the curve is super duper flattened. I think we had maybe 30 people pass yesterday, which is still 30 people, but compared to the hundreds and within the whole state of New York. So we're definitely being smart. Real estate companies open up, retail, but only if they can provide curb service. Yeah.
Right.
And here goes this guy. New York City is going right back into shutdown mode as soon as people get on that train. Well, he would know because he works at the MTA, so that's an inside scoop. So.
Oh, okay.
You heard it here first in the bodega. So, yeah. So with that being said, oh, this guy. What are we talking about tonight? What do you think we're gonna talk about, Vader? Really? was that the setup? Was that the setup for us?
The weather. We're just gonna talk about the
He was
weather.
trying to give you a transition.
I know, right? Thank you. But hold on, let me get Detroit. But before we get into that, I definitely want to start in a more light manner. So let me just share my screen. All right. Thought this was kind of hilarious. People don't really, me and countless other apologists, we always tell people, vet your memes. Right? You gotta vet your memes. Right? So here's a meme of an atheist saying, atheist temples, more than one book available. Right? Which is supposed to be a shot at Christians, right? The thing is, right, the guy uses a photo of Trinity College in Dublin to imply that Christians don't read.
For real, bro?
It says it right there.
For that.
Vet your memes, bro. Like, this is what we're doing.
For real, yo.
It's like, and this is from the Brights, right? That's what the atheists like to call themselves, the Brights. So, I mean, I don't know how many times me and Colin we vetted these memes, and I mean we did a whole show which we're gonna bring back soon, debunking meme scholarship. You know what I mean? So we're definitely gonna be doing that pretty soon.
I would argue that we don't have to go here, but I would argue if naturalism is true, like some form of put it this way, if God doesn't exist and there's only the physical world, I would argue that the faculties that we have in order to be able to read, we shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? We should be able.
Right.
All of us should be illiterate. Like language should be unintelligible. We should all be illiterate.
Why would a bag of chemicals have the capacity to create language and be able to decipher? Right.
Especially if that bag is you got like a determinism going on where it's just all you got in the physical brain is just one physical event after another. You know what I'm saying, then from that you can't get content. I'm saying you just get different events happening. You know what I'm saying? If that's the case, then none of us should be able to read. So in a way, reading, I think it makes more sense on a theistic paradigm than a naturalistic one.
Absolutely. So they've been having the versus battles on Instagram, and they've been fun.
That's been hard coming for your boy.
Hard to listen because people still don't know how to figure out how to use their sound systems on Instagram, but nevertheless, the best one thus far was the Beanie Man and Bounty Killer versus. That joint was amazing. And if you're Caribbean and you're from Brooklyn, you know what I'm talking about. That joint was super duper crazy. But now we're gonna take it to the gospel level here. So it says Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond go head to head in the next versus battle. So who you guys have?
Fred's getting bodied.
Are you kidding me?
Fred's getting bodied.
I'm telling you, on everything. Kirk Franklin is the GOAT. I don't care what anybody says. Yo. Kirk Franklin. I'm saying here, I'll wage my entire channel on that jank. Kirk Franklin is the GOAT. I don't care what nobody says.
No, Mahalia Jackson is the GOAT for one.
Oh, okay. I mean, all right. Well, I mean, you're gonna, that's cheating.
like Fred's catalog. This is kind of like a Prince versus Michael Jackson.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
6 to 1 hand, half a dozen of the other. But
okay.
For me,
All right.
Kirk Franklin don't compare to Fred Hammond. Fred Hammond is a beast. Man. This
I don't agree with that.
I feel like Fred is kind of like LL Cool J, where like he was rapping, but after a while I was like, bro, you know what I mean? Just
Fred Hammond hand over fist No doubt, no question. It's not
What?
even a competition, bro. First of all, the only thing that Kirk Franklin would be doing every time he plays is like, come on.
I mean, he's not a singer. Yeah. I mean, yeah, no doubt.
My man,
That's all he would do the whole time.
But as far as
Like,
arranging
he won't even
the song,
ad-lib.
though.
At least Fred would ad lib a little something while he's listening
But
to
hey,
his
but
stuff.
Kirk that man can arrange a song, man.
No,
He might arrange a new song on like live. You know what I'm saying? Like that dude is phenomenal, dude.
Man,
He's phenomenal, man.
Kirk is the
All Fred's gonna play Blessed for like an hour.
Kirk.
And he's gonna play it for like an hour, B.
Adam, I'm convinced that you are Fred illiterate, bro.
Wow. Fred illiterate.
Fred,
That's deep. That's deep.
Fred,
Shots.
He's got some classics, bro. Like even in the commission days, you know,
I mean,
he's got some. He is a legend. Like Kirk Franklin is a legend for sure, but at the same time, Kirk Franklin he's a choir director, man. Like he is a big famous choir director.
Fred Hammond is the worst
legend, bro.
gospel artist rapper of all time, dog. Like if this cat raps on one more song, B. Like just stop. Like just I just can't put the nails on the chalkboard. Like he lost me after Pages of Life, or what was it? Pages of whatever it was.
Like chapter 2 when he did the Run DMC.
He lost me after that. After that, I was like, I just can't even deal with you, dog. I just can't even
Let's pause real quick. My man just came in. Kyle Spears, good brother of mine. He is a family therapist, so he's going to chime in and give us some expertise on just the trauma that, well, all of us are experiencing this week. But before we get to that, well, how much time do you have, Kyle? Are you here to hang, or you got to dip real soon?
No, you're good. You're good. And,
Nice.
It's good to see everybody, by the way. Good to see everybody.
Likewise.
So, we're starting light, and then we're going to get into the crazy. We're going to fall into the abyss eventually, but we're starting light. So back to the trash talking. Go ahead, guys.
Well, right now I'm getting beat up in the chat room. By the way, lying at him.
Lying at him. Stop lying at him.
I'm
Wow.
so mad at you right now. I'm taking real L's right now in this chat room.
Yeah, I mean,
Adam,
nobody remembered Kirk when Ty Tribbett was doing his thing before everything happened. You know, I'm
gonna leave that alone. But
then Kirk had to reinvent himself to try to stay relevant. But Fred Hammond has been consistent.
Man, yo, how many kids out in the world are singing Fred Hammond right now? Kirk was on like regular channel. It was like the Clark sisters. You know what I'm saying? He was like on regular channels along with every other music. The man has put in ridiculous work, dog. Like why are we disrespecting this man?
He had good choirs.
Everybody,
but that's his job though. That's like saying like Puff
Now remember, it's not just songs that they sing; it's songs they've written and produced. They get to use as well at the back.
Different songs that they've written and produced, and Fred got them. You know what I'm saying? However, Kirk Franklin has changed the face of gospel music. The way that he arranges his music everybody he's a trendsetter.
Why? Because he did the Millie Rock. He's the first gospel do the Millie Rock.
No. I mean, you start going back.
Yeah, he's the first.
And to wear tank top.
You know, back to like God's property and the stomp and all that kind of stuff. That makes a big difference, right? But at the same time, Fred's
what are you doing, Kirk?
He got music for days. He used to play bass commission. Y'all don't know. Like,
I really feel like Chris Featherstone has some real beef with Kirk right now. I feel like
he feels some type of way.
It's got to be some real backstory.
Fred illiterate. I want all the chat room to start the hashtag Fred illiterate.
I'm already taking L's in the chat.
My brother up here.
You didn't get down with Tennessee United. Adam.
Hey,
listen. Was a dope album. Tennessee United was dope.
Man,
Kirk was alright. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't never like Fred had me for 2 albums.
You talking about Pages of Life Chapter 2, bro? That was 1998, bro.
I agree, and he was whack to me after that. He lost me after that. He lost me. I don't feel him.
Man.
I don't feel him. I don't like his arrangement.
You gotta remember, they get to use the songs they written and produced, even if they didn't sing it themselves. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
I haven't liked his music since like '98. Like for
Man,
real.
you
He just lost me.
Have you listened to it?
You guys gonna say you missed a lot, bro.
I tried, man. I tried, man.
If you
I
left
really
off
did.
at 98, like I can understand. Like hashtag Fred illiterate to the T. If you left off at 98.
I'm not afraid of illiterate. I'm afraid of allergic. I'm afraid of
bars. The MC's coming out of Adam. The MC's coming out of Adam.
You Fred both. You Fred allergic and illiterate, bro.
Oh man,
it's a mixed
I'm
bag.
leaving. I'm out of here.
No, stay, because you gotta like this, because we're gonna deal with Hotepicon. We're gonna be dealing with some Hotepicon. We're gonna be dealing with the Hotepery. All right, we're gonna be doing some. So check this out. This is an actual article. Ready? Locks can be used as spiritual antennas to tap into higher consciousness.
I have heard people say that.
Perfect hairdo, huh?
Oh man.
All right, so Chris, and Adam, you guys should be able to give us some anecdotal evidence for that, right?
No, I can confirm that it's absolutely not true because I still do and say some pretty stupid things sometimes. So I'm pretty sure I whatever I'm supposed to be able to tap into, I haven't been able to tap into it. So
you have to open your third eye, bro. Come on,
yeah,
we was kings, bro. What you talking about? But so anyway, so all right, so here's the part of the article. Now, to increase in consciousness, I noticed as the years went by, my spiritual senses, intuition, understanding, vision, past and present, etc., went through the roof. I didn't recognize anything special about it at first until I realized other people without locks were not having these experiences on the level I was having them. It's like my hair was conducting electricity or picking up signals from the earth and the cosmos. I guess the easiest way to explain it would be, I realized my hair was spiritual antennas made of melanin. Keep in mind too, I am also a serious reader and researcher. I love to learn on a regular basis, not for school. Over the last 5 years, I feel like I've read hundreds of books and watched over 100,000 hours of lectures, speeches, lessons, documentaries on anything about black history, the biology of melanated people, or ancient sciences. Wow. So what's your take?
Grandiose thinking.
I'm not picking up anything. I'm totally void of any locks.
This man's delusional. That's what I think. I think he's got
That's crazy.
Delusions of grandeur. That's what we're dealing with right now.
Listen, I've had locks for about 15 years now. So that means I've had locks. I've not had locks longer than I have locks. And I'll tell you this much: I have not went into some cosmos, some extra terrestrial, some type of celestial cosmos of the third and fourth and fifth worlds. I haven't experienced that yet. I don't plan on experiencing that at all. And I don't think because of me having locks, it is totally a preference of hairstyle for me. For those who want to tap into those demons, go for it. But I don't think it's your hair that's doing it. I think it's you.
Well, let me add this in too. Like, so he's done. Wait a minute. Over the last 5 years, he feels like he's read hundreds of books. So we don't really know, but he feels like that. He's watched over 100,000 hours of lectures. He includes, among other things, the biology of melanated people. Now, speaking of biology, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure hair is not made of melanin.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure that's not correct.
It's a protein, right? Hair is protein.
Keratin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not made of melanin. Now, maybe it has melanin, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But I'm pretty sure it's not made of melanin. So I'm wondering, where did all this 100,000 of hours of lecture speeches and lessons, like, how did it not help him to get that right?
You know, bro, here's the answer, Adam. It was his astral projection, bro. Like, when he hit it, when he his third eye, his astral projection, he learned all of that apart from his body. So he's just
his third eye is a glass eye.
Yeah, he's coming back to this
it's calcified.
It's a glass eye, and it's still
probably,
looking left.
Yeah, it's probably got cataracts in it, bro. Like,
yeah, it's got spots. It's got spots. He's not seeing clearly.
He's coming back to this world to let us know all these things. We're just ill-informed of tapping into another world because we're missing out having locks, Adam.
You're right.
So to continue with the Hotepery, Black millennials are leaving religion to achieve spiritual enlightenment.
Which is a religion.
So here's the quote. Here's the quote. Oh wait, no, that's not what I wanted.
Why you got that?
Oh, okay, here we go. We've already proven to ourselves through much study and research, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Pastor Porkchop is full of, you see the word, he or she may be a nice person, do good things in the community, so on and so on, but at the end of the day, they are liars and con artists. Adam wasn't the first man. Jesus never existed. The story was stolen from Egypt. The story of Heru, Horus. God never came to them in a dream and told them anything. My tithes and offerings are not going to God, but to their bank accounts for later luxury spending. The church is nothing but a scam. Rather than finding righteousness in the churches, we often find more hostility, lies, absurdity, scandals, and arrogance. Ironically, more than we should find on the outside of these institutions. This leads us to what? Other options. Your thoughts?
So so Pastor Porkchop is Eric Mason to them, right?
Could be.
Okay, that's what Hebrew Israelites call Eric Mason, Pastor Porkchop. So I don't know.
Was the dude Adam confronted. What's old boy's name?
No, Ray Higgins.
Ray Higgins. I always thought it was Ray Higgins, but
I know Hebrew Israelites call him Porkchop. Well, I don't know. It could be one of them, but
it's a generic title for any preacher that But I'm sure they call Mason that.
Yeah,
what's
I know
interesting is that you can take these characteristics and point it to individuals in the conscious community as well. You can take these same characteristics, and all you're doing is proving that human beings are flawed, not a religious system as far as Christianity. Because if you compare individuals who are actually living like Christ, you wouldn't see any of these behaviors. So you have to kind of narrow it down to the belief system instead of attacking individuals who are human beings who are probably not practicing what they preach, right? Hypocrisy. So we could take these same characteristics and point to individuals in the conscious community and say, hey, listen, you guys are doing this, you guys are thieves, you guys aren't really teaching people the truth, or you're sending them down rabbit holes. So I mean, this whole thing is just a general. But the thing is, what's dangerous about this is that this will catch a lot of individuals who are not serious about Christ and about being in a relationship with the Lord. This will totally knock them off their rocker. So this is the kind of thing that's important for us to make sure that we are doing things from our advantage point in teaching the gospel, debunking these kind of lies so that they're not thrown off guard. And I think it's important that you're bringing it up right now. So,
especially what's going on now, SOC. That's
right. I mean, this is a conscious community greatest hits collection. This one paragraph, right? I mean,
yeah. It's a tenet of faith that for them that Jesus was copied from Horus is a blind faith commitment, because, like I said, we done debunked that so many times, and that theory just cannot account for the evidence. It cannot account for the writings of Paul. It cannot account for the early dates of the Gospels. It cannot account for the creed in 1 Corinthians 15. It cannot account for the fact that we know that it takes myth years to build up. And when I say years, I'm talking about years, almost centuries to build up. And so we have shredded it. At this point, I'm like, I'm like Matt Dillahunty. I'm not convinced.
I need more evidence. I need more evidence.
Too. I mean, as far as evidence, one thing I think it's easy for us to or to forget. I mean, most people who are involved in apologetics are interested in it. They're probably people who are interested in the life of the mind. They want to learn. They want to be engaged the brain. And I think sometimes that we assume the people that we're dealing with are the same way, but really a lot of times, like, it's information is not the problem. You know what I'm saying? It's just a heart issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's emotional. I mean, Kevin Wesley has made a whole platform himself off of complaints about Christianity, just like this right here. You know what I'm saying? Like, the information he provides is garbage. His arguments are terrible. Philosophically, he's paper thin. He's
still running from Adam Coleman, by the way. For how many years now? We've been running from him, bro?
It's been about 3 now. He knows what's up. He knows what's up. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, these guys, they make a living off of playing on people's emotions at the end of the day. With that being said, and I'm sure we'll probably come back to this later, but I think apologetics does have to be incarnational. I think that we have to be cognizant of engaging the whole person. You know what I'm saying? So that's more than just like head knowledge. I mean, there's a more weight behind what we can bring to the table. You know what I'm saying, as apologists, than just kind of get going tit for tat on information. So I think we have to keep that in mind.
Right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
we have done ourselves a disservice if we do apologetics of the head, and we at the end of the conversation we say "gotcha" instead of inviting them to Jesus. We've done ourselves a huge disservice.
Absolutely. All right. So with that being said, that was fun. So let's get into the nonsense. All right. So on Monday evening, yet another video of a white woman calling the cops on a black person out of spite went viral. This time, the woman in question was Amy Cooper, a dog owner who had unleashed her Cocker Spaniel, Henry, in a section of Central Park called the Ramble, where legally dogs must be on a leash at all times. So, have you guys seen the video?
Yes, we have.
Yep.
All right. So, what's your initial thoughts before we continue?
What a wicked woman!
Wow.
What a liar! What a person who is just so ignorant of history, of the action that she was doing. How people like Emmett Till was murdered because of a lie.
Right, absolutely.
And yeah, I'm gonna call it what it is. I don't feel. I'm not holding back any words. This woman tried to weaponize the police department against this brother, and we already see what happened. So I'm just gonna be flat out honest. There's an issue with the system, and this woman was trying to play the system.
Right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to weigh in real quick. So, like, for most of the people in the chat, y'all know I was born and raised in Toronto. Turns out this woman's Canadian. So
it's your fault.
Blame Canada. Yeah,
blame Canada.
Right.
Oh, you're funny.
Yeah, right from jump. But yeah, it just goes to show a lot of people remember when Trump was getting elected. Everyone was moving to Canada.
Right.
It's not the end of the Underground Railroad anymore. It's not. It's crazy. And it has a subtle racism that's there that you might not see as overtly here, right? Because you'll go up to Canada, you're not going to see the Klan. There are white supremacist groups. There are militia groups. There are all these different things. Now, I know that's extreme, but when we're talking about systematic types of racism and things of that nature, subtle racism where, we're all one, except when I don't like what you're doing. We're all one and equal, except for when I think I can get away with something because it's just my word versus your word, and I know I'm going to get what I want. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the kind of thing that we got to kind of recognize there. So I found it was a little bit saddening, to kind of hear from that kind of situation. And the fact that it was, again, in New York, it's like the North, 2020, we're all, liberal, we're all supposed to be, loving people. It's a crock. I'm not going to finish the sentiment, but, it's a travesty. And the fact that it got caught was fortunate, but at the end of the day, we could have been having two people getting killed at the same week.
Before we continue, is my mic better now? I think people were saying it was too loud. How is it now? Is it all right? People in the chat, how's my mic? How I sound? Am I too loud still? Anybody? Put a 1 if the mic sounds okay. Just put a 1 in the chat. Let's see.
I might not hear you now.
All right, Benjamin says sounds good.
Gianni says 1. Okay. Cool.
Can I jump in now?
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. I want to preface my comment by saying I do not adhere to critical race theory. Let me make that real clear up front. But the reality is there are elements. Critical race theory, it does have some elements of truth within it. One of which is you cannot spend a significant amount of time in America without being tainted by racism because we have such a racial society. It was such an integral part of American culture for such an extended period of time. So for me, it's no surprise that a Canadian person would come over here and begin to and take on elements. I've spoken to other immigrants who have mentioned the same thing. Even though they weren't born here, they were quickly taught the significance of racism over here through culture, just through mores, unspoken things, but unspoken behaviors that people have. That's one. Two, she is like a poster child for what modern racism looks like. It's not necessarily hating the person because of the color of their skin. It's realizing that it's realizing that you can raise your voice and say that the person's black and it's going to elicit a different response. This woman completely believed that by mentioning that this man was black, that it was gonna get some sort of a unique response from the police. So I
Right.
think that's what modern racism looks like. And then finally, she's also a case example for white privilege. The very fact that she thinks that she can do that is a privilege that people of color don't have. So that's my
Mr. Spears, can you weigh in?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
When I looked through the videos, I went through many sets of videos, and what I noticed, and I'm going to just kind of bring in the psychological part a little bit, attachment theory wise, that consistently on many of the posts, there was more attunement to the dog. And it was interesting because I kept going over and over, and I'm like, okay, are we going to attune to both? Because I'm a both and guy. Can we do that? Okay, we're threatening human being, and you're choking the heck out of a dog.
Right.
But there were several times where it was just literally looked at this poor dog. And in that moment, I even said something to my wife. I said, wow, okay, that's concerning to me, because we're talking about a moment where this guy, he had to take his own humanization in his own hands. And even though he had the tape, the focus was on this dog. And so I think just from a psychological perspective, there's still quite a bit of a disconnect. And again, I don't want to be critical. I think there's a lot of people out there who do feel that he was a human being who was being treated poorly. But man, if you look in the comment section, that's where the harm seemed to really show up for people. And I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but
All right. Anyone else before we continue?
Yeah. I mean, we can look at what happened with Michael Vick, and the life of a dog is worth so much more than the life of a black man in America. And like I said, we got some folks, some of our other brethren who are brothers and sisters in Christ. Once again, they don't want to come to the reality of this thing. They don't want to face reality of it. But it's like Will Smith said, it's being filmed. It's not necessarily that it's getting worse. It's just being filmed, and it's just hitting you in the face. So you can either go into cognitive dissonance, or you can just come on in and understand that yes, we do have racism on an individual level, but we also have it on the structural level as well.
Right.
And there's a refusal to deal with it on the level of on the structural level, and that's where the problem is.
Now, what's funny too, right? Because it says here she had them unleashed legally. Dogs must be on a leash at all times, right? So, just so you know, so this is the New York City Health Code. A person who owns or controls a dog may not allow it to be in any public place or in any open or unfenced field abutting a public place, unless the dog is effectively restrained by a leash or chain no more than 6 feet. Right? So she's already breaking code already, right? And then, so elsewhere in the article it says Christian Cooper, a black man who had reportedly asked the woman to put a leash on her dog because she was breaking the law. She didn't appreciate his request, and what transpired was captured in the video by Christian Cooper, in which the woman, unhappy with being recorded, threatened to call the police. Quote, "I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life," Amy Cooper says in the 1-minute clip, and she did, whining hysterically, emphasizing the fact that her so-called attacker was African American, and nearly strangling her dog in the process. Which brings us to New York Animal Abuse Law, Section 353 of the Agricultural and Markets Law. Is New York's misdemeanor cruelty statute, torturing and injuring animals, failure to provide proper sustenance. Torture, quote unquote, or cruelty includes every act, omission, or neglect whereby unjustifiable physical pain, suffering, or death is caused or permitted. So she's guilty of two infractions off rip. She's the lawbreaker.
Yeah, I just find it so interesting that one, she was willing to break the law and make a lie and double down on her lie, all being filmed. She was so confident in her privilege that she was willing to do that and do it in a convincing way that the police will believe her. And Cooper even told her that she was being filmed, and she saw it, and she tried to reject it. So she was so I think there's such a disillusion in that to be so confident in your privilege that you're thinking in your head like, okay, I'm making a bunch of these violations, but I'm so confident in my privilege that I bet you still I'm going to be so convincing that even amidst all the evidence, I'm still going to win this thing. To me, that is just so delusional.
Right,
I think,
right.
this,
Yeah, I mean,
I think
and
the
it kinda-
scarier part. Get Adam.
Well, no, just to kind of piggyback on that, and I think Chris Samuel was alluding to this as well. Like, well, put it this way, we're so often told, oh, well, you're seeing racism where there isn't racism, or you're hypersensitive to it. Like, like it's like we have this, kind of pseudo awareness of racism, but it's an illusion. It's not really there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in cases like this, she's also picking up on something. Like, she's also believing that there's this element out there in society that she can tap into and utilize for her advantage. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just us, who believe that there's a problem out here. Like, she evidently understands that there's something out there too. And I think it's so key to understand, like, there's a reason why she was that confident. There's a reason why she said to herself, all right, well, if I say, not just there's a man attacking me, if I say there's an African American man attacking me, and I kind of drum up the tear,
Right.
hysterics, and all this kind of stuff, like, she has an expectation of a response.
Yep.
Why did she have that kind of expectation? She has it for a reason. And it just, use two quick examples. It's just like a couple years ago when you had the situation with the owner of the Clippers, right? Where, it came out, he had made some, some racist remarks or what have you. And a lot of people miss it, but if you pick up on what he said, one of the quotes he says that I've got friends calling me, he's talking to his girlfriend. I have friends calling me, asking me why you're taking pictures with Magic Johnson, this black man. Now, what kind of friends does the owner of the Clippers have? You're saying that are calling him about, this racial issue. So it's not just his own, racism, but he has other individuals that probably roll in the same kind of spheres that he does, probably own businesses or employers and so on and so forth, who feel that way. Or Amber Geiger. When Amber Geiger is texting other officers, laughing and joking about the death of MLK while serving and protecting at an MLK event, you know what I'm saying? And she's making disparaging remarks about other officers who are black. She has an expectation that these racist sentiments are going to be reciprocated to her from fellow officers. So that tells us that we're not just dealing with individuals. Like, people got to stop it with this nonsense. Oh, well, it's just one person, it's one individual. No, all of these cases, these people have expectations that within their social sphere, their racist sentiments or what have you will be reciprocated, and that other people will respond in kind. There's a reason for that, because America has and has always had a personhood problem, particularly with respect to race, and it's not gone, man. Like, like people swear it's like America had a cold. No, we had bronchitis. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't get rid of it, just by laying down for a couple hours. There's a problem here.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, Colin. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to kind of piggyback on that, Adam. That's one of the things that I have an open question for anybody that's willing to deal with it. Are we all delusional? Like, does every black person, have we all made this stuff up? Like, is this something that Because like you get that idea that yeah, this is just isolated incidents. How is it isolated when I would say the vast majority of us on this panel, the vast majority of the people of color in the chat have experienced some form of overt or covert racism at some point in time, right? Y'all can't be making it up. I've never been invited to the meeting that says, okay, this is what we're going to say, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't have that experience. I've never been in some room where they told me to say anything because this stuff is really real, right? I mean, like just for what I do for a living, right? I'm actually it's odd to see a lot of and I'm gonna just call it what it is, man. I've worked in healthcare for almost all my adult life, right? And the fact of the matter is, more often than not, when you walk into a hospital, most the time that you're going to see black people in the hospital, they're going to be cooking your food or mopping your floor. That's most people's experience, right? In healthcare. And when I walk in the door, and I would knock on the door and introduce myself and what I'm there for, or I knock on the door outside the door. This is physical therapy or whatever. You mind if I come in? Oh, sure. And then when I walk in the door, sometimes when people see my face, then all of a sudden the blanket comes up to the neck, and then all of a sudden there's a look of concern, and it's like, why are you here? Well, I just announced myself. I told you why I'm here and asked you for permission to walk in the door. You said yes, right? And that's one of those things that when we talk about that kind of thing, and I try to make people feel comfortable, try to understand like different lingo and stuff like that, so people can feel comfortable when I walk in the door. But that's the thing. People, I don't know what it is, if it's just like handed down or whatever the case is. Who knows? I don't know how people got kind of come to this conclusion, but it's not like we're making this stuff up. This
Right.
is a real problem, and it needs to get addressed.
I want to give my man Paperboy. He just stepped into the bodega. What up? Can you hear me, Gianni?
Yes, sir. What's going on, beloved? What's up, big bros?
What's going
What's
on,
up?
man? It's good to hear you. Straight out of MIA. You know what I mean?
Look,
So
man. Look, there's a lot going on. Y'all talked about a lot, man. So I'm just gonna keep it brief on my end as far as what we talked about here. I need everybody, whenever they get a chance, to look up a sociologist called Robin DiAngelo. She has plenty works on white fragility, and she explains a lot of this phenomenon we see here when we're dealing with white privilege and when we're dealing with the subconsciousness of the American people as far as these topics go. But yeah, she has a lot of good works on, isolating not necessarily the people, but how the system has been put into a position of diverting diverting itself from individuals. So we'll look at one person and say, okay, they're being racist, and totally forget that there's a whole system that compels that person to do so. So, I don't even know as much as what you guys talked about the last 40 minutes, but I just wanted to throw that. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick, to give the people some place to look at,
right.
and exactly where to go as far as this information goes, to break it down in layman terms. And she is a white woman, so it's not like she's a Hispanic, a black woman. She's a white woman, and she breaks all this down in layman's terms. But yeah, there's a lot going on, so I'm gonna just lay back a little bit, because if I go off, it's gonna be something different. You might have to kick me out of here, so.
Yeah, nah, you good, homie. You good.
Man.
So as you see here, she knew she broke the law because she gives up the dog, right? This is the Abandoned Angels Cocker Spaniel Rescue Inc. Thank you to the concerned public for reaching out to us about a video involving a dog that was adopted from our rescue a few weeks ago. As of this evening, the owner has voluntarily surrendered the dog in question to our rescue while this matter is being addressed. Our mission remains the health and safety of our rescued dogs. The dog is now in our rescue's care, and he is safe and in good health. We will not be responding to any further inquiries about the situation, either publicly or privately. Thank you for your understanding. So someone got in her ears, like, check this out. You might go down for the dog. You might not go down for the black guy, but you might go down for the dog. So she gave up the dog. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think the abuse was obvious, but one of the things that I was going to talk about earlier was the fact that imagine if this wasn't on camera.
Right.
Like, how would this situation have played out? I mean, she yelled out, "An African male's attacking me." So, and all of a sudden, like, what if he didn't have a phone with him? What if he didn't have a camera? What if he didn't record it? How differently would that scenario have played out? And nobody would have been none the wiser. I think questions like that have to also be addressed and asked, and actually think about these things from a grand perspective in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people tonight. All right, here you go.
Sorry about that. Just like I said earlier, this is a woman. This is an individual, and like I said, we have Protestant Christians want to address this on an individual by individual basis, but clearly, this woman was aware of how the system works. So it's just like Gianni said a few minutes ago. We have to address the system, and for whatever reason, certain people don't want to address the system unless they want to deregulate. And that's the issue.
Right, absolutely. And as you see here, again, Adam.
Well, no, I mean, just a real brief point too. I mean, to kind of bring it around biblically, this is why, when you look in scriptures, God can justly judge a nation. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, over here in the West, we've been bamboozled by Western individualism. I'm saying Western individualism is not biblical. And by Western individualism, I mean not taking into account the relation with which we have, with one another. You know what I'm saying? And there's mutual accountability when it comes to that. There's a reason why. You can have, a book of Amos where God is going through different nations, I'm judging these people for this. I'm judging these people for that. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason for that. It's because over here, listen, I ain't trying to get you in trouble, bro. I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, man.
Say what I gotta say.
Say it. Say it.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm only using this because it's the only example I can think of. But back about a year or so ago, you had individuals like John MacArthur, when they did that statement on social justice. And he was harping on, that scripture talks about the soul that sins shall die. And he was basically harping on this idea of just individual judgment. Hey, with all due respect, the man is dead wrong about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there, all throughout scripture, you see God dealing with people groups, nations, and so forth. And the evidence is right there in scripture. Go, if you doubt it, go to 1 Samuel chapter 15 right now. And you can read about, watch this. You can read about how God judged the Amalekites, and he commissioned Saul to go wage war on the Amalekites centuries after the offense for which God was judging them. You know what I'm saying? God said he's going to judge the Amalekites for what they did to Israel coming out of Egypt. That was centuries before he commissioned Saul to go deal with the Amalekites. So none of the Amalekites who were alive at that time, at the time of judgment, were alive during the time of the offense. Well, how can God do that justly? Because you have to understand that when sins become woven into the fabric of a society, I'm saying the offenders at any given time may not still be around, but that sin is still present, and God can justly judge that sin. You know what I'm saying? So it happens all the time. We talk about racism becoming embedded in society. We've been dealing with the same problem for since the revolution now, and before, during the colonial period. The same problem is still here. And so, when we're talking about, the lady with the dog, or something we're going to get into in a minute, it's all interrelated. We have to stop fooling ourselves and thinking, oh, well, no, it's all good. It's just these individual folks. You know what I'm saying? No, we need to take communal sin seriously, because the Bible does. If we're going to be Bible people, we need to go with that. You know what I'm saying? Right.
Good stuff.
That's my topic right there. The whole Bible is a collectivist enterprise. It starts with Adam, the fall of Adam, which affects all of humanity. It ends with Jesus Christ, who potentially reconciles all of humanity. And everywhere in between, God's dealing with people groups. Rarely, if ever, is he dealing with an individual. It is our hyper-Western individualism that we read into scripture and take scripture out of context. Adam was just he was preaching to the choir on that one.
Well, this individual got fired from Franklin Templeton. Following our internal review of the incident in Central Park yesterday, we have made the decision to terminate the employee involved effective immediately. We do not tolerate racism of any kind at Franklin Templeton. So, she lost a dog, she lost a job. Oh, did you see her? Did you see her apology? Let me show you the apology. Let me show you the apology. Oh, wait. Okay. This is the apology. I sincerely and humbly apologize to everyone, especially to that man, his family. It was unacceptable, and I humbly and fully apologize to everyone who has seen that video. Everyone that's been offended. Everyone who thinks of me in a lower light, and I understand why they do. When I think about the police, I'm such a blessed person. I've come to realize, especially today, that I think of the police as a protection agency. And unfortunately, this has caused me to realize that there are so many people in this country that don't have that luxury.
I've got 5 syllables for you.
Hey, this is a Christian channel. This is a Christian channel.
5 syllables, bro.
As long as you say it in the CMX voice. You got to say it in the CMX voice.
Here's the 5 syllables. Disingenuous.
There you go.
That was that apology.
Right. MJ. Get MJ.
Oh, I was just saying, man, politics. She's trying to get ready for her next job.
But it's such a weird thing. It's just like, I look at the police as a protection agency, and I realize that so many people in this country don't have that luxury. What, to put hits on people? Yeah. Mr. Spears, can I get your 2 cents on this real quick?
I mean, honestly, it's just sad because to me, it's like the only way to hold somebody accountable is you have to have tape. So what does that mean? Because if you don't have, it's like, do I go into McDonald's and just turn my camera on? Number 2, the only thing that holds people accountable is if you affect their income and their reputation. That's the honey. So then, okay, wow. So then that changes how we play the game. And I'm not really in the games. I just want to be. But it's like, okay, I need to have a camera. I need to understand what affects your income. And then I need to understand how it will affect your reputation, because that's everything to you. So that just kind of changed the game a little bit.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, let me say something. So I think I know where we messed up, y'all. I think I know where we messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Tell us, bro. Tell us.
So a couple years ago, there was a lot of talk about policemen wearing body cams. You know what I'm saying? Particularly after the Trayvon situation, that was like a big national thing, like policemen wearing body cams. I think we had it backwards. I think black people need to wear body cams. We need to all be walking around like, you may not have time to pull the cell phone up. You know what I'm saying? We might all just need to walk around with lapel body cams for our own safety. Because I don't see the police as a protection agency. I don't know. I don't know. Now, some of them might roll through to serve and protect. Some of them might not. You don't know what you're gonna. It's a mixed bag. I don't know. The good ones, thank God for you. You know what I'm saying? Speak up against the bad ones. I think you can be even more effective. But in the meantime, man, I might just go ahead and get me a body cam, dog. Just call it a day.
Yeah, it's disgusting that it's come to that, though. Like that's probably the best option that we have. And speaking of camera, I'm gonna kind of take it someplace else with this. Y'all know the movie Birth of a Nation, right? And y'all know about that.
Which one? The original one or the
original one? Yeah, the original one, way back when. And like the depraved, sex crazed black man is gonna rape the woman, and white woman, and she'd rather jump off the cliff or whatever than to be ravaged by this beast. You know what I'm saying? And the Klan comes in, to save the day. I wonder, like, when she's talking about this, I realize that the police is a protection agency. Or she's treating it like that. Is it something that's kind of, we get that idea, from that? Is that what, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just asking a question out loud. Because to me, it's so, I don't even know how to really articulate what I'm going to say. It's just so, it's still frightening that when it comes down to he said, she said, if we don't have the evidence, and sometimes when we do, right? You can have a person that will be the good guy with the gun, right? But if that looks like me, I might get killed. You understand what I'm saying? I remember I had a conversation with somebody. I do have a concealed carry license for Ohio as well, and I'm not going to say when I do or don't carry whatever, like, but it's not too far
He
away.
got that thing on him. That's what he's trying to say. He got that thing on him.
The door for your protection, right? So I mean, but yeah, it's one of those things where I was asked by a white gentleman, an old white gentleman, and said, "Hey, I heard you shoot," and I was like, "Yeah, I do okay." And he said, "Hey, listen, you ever open carry?" I said, "Of course not." And he looked at me like genuinely shocked. He said, "Well, why not? It's your right." I said, "You and I both know that nobody wants to see a black man with a gun walking around in anybody's neighborhood. Like, nobody wants to see that, right? Whether or not it's your constitutional right. This was years before John Crawford III in Ohio. This was years before Tamir Rice in Ohio, right? Where you can open carry. It's not a problem. It's the law. However, when you got people that look like you doing the things that are constitutional and still getting blasted, by the cops before they have a chance to even recognize that someone's calling for their attention, or whatever the case is, it's not the same thing. We live in a different America than other people do. That's just
Facts. That's facts.
Lando Castillo. Yeah, one of the things I think that contributes to it is I think we've gotten to the point in our society where we idolize and we give special we give exceptions to our politicians or like these cops, like literally the Floyd, right? I know we'll talk about that later, but Floyd was accused of forgery, right? And we saw what happened to him. But on camera, the police officer literally murdered a person, and it took days to arrest him. So why did it take so long? And I'm not trying to push this down there, but just I'm pointing to this particular problem in our society where we're making exceptions for people that should be held to a higher standard. Our politicians, our police officers, these are the people who should be held to the highest standard of integrity. And instead, we give them the benefit of the doubt, even in the case of glaring, obviously they're doing something wrong, whether they're stealing money as a politician, behaving immorally, cheating on their wife on public dime, whatever. So anyway, let me step off my milk crate. That's one of those milk crate issues for me.
And again, it all boils down to being the imago Dei, right? Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Right? The word image here is Salem in the Hebrew, which means to be a representative figure. Right? We've been created to represent God, all humanity. But for some reason, there's segments of humanity that refuse to acknowledge other segments of this fact. And as long as we have this going on, this disconnect, we're going to have what we see almost every other day now. We do not believe that everybody is an imager of God. Adam, this is your bread and butter right here. So.
Oh man, you caught me at the wrong time, man. I'm sorry, bro. He's made a super serious point, but they're killing you in this chat, man. Phil Fox said we got BK working his mouse about to give out.
Yeah, I'm glad so many people are here. I just didn't know everybody's going to show up, so this is a good problem. Good problem to have.
You said you're going to get carpal tunnel out this mug, man. You made like a super serious point. I'm over here like tripping out, off of that, man. But yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, but to your point though, that's what true idea is all about. The real you imago Dei. We're made in the image of God, and with really throughout the scripture, and I know that I feel like I've heard Chris Samuel speak on this before, but throughout the scripture, that's the linchpin of our moral obligations to one another, right? Now, what happens is, when racism gets into place, then all of a sudden we look at our moral obligations towards others based upon race, or in any given context. Like I'll say, even like in America, for example, sometimes people understand the moral obligations to somebody else based upon the Constitution, you know what I mean, or what, you know, legally they have to do, or so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? But really, for Christians, for the people of God, our moral obligations transcend even the laws of our, you know, immediate, you know, government. You know what I'm saying? We owe more to one another than even what man's law has to say, and it's because we ought to be engaging one another based on the Imago Dei. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, you know, just kind of leave, you know, I don't want to harp on this too much, but like when we saw the treatment of individuals at the borders and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Like the Imago Dei, you know what I'm saying? If we're dealing with people on that basis, it doesn't matter whether they're the same, you know, citizenship status as we are. Now, granted, that doesn't mean everybody gets the same benefits in America. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the citizenship. I'm just saying that the level of treatment needs to approximate to who we are as the Imago Dei, not just whether somebody is in our group or not. You know what I'm saying we have to be real careful with those kinds of distinctions.
Absolutely. So, okay, all right. Yes, that's a lot of you guys here today. Okay, so here's the word Salem, right? Representative figure. So so now let's get into what, you know, the most pressing issue, right? Four officers fired after black man dies in Minneapolis police custody, and video shows an officer kneeling on his neck. Minneapolis, a black man has died in Minneapolis police custody after video shared online from a bystander showed a white officer kneeling on his neck during his arrest as he pleaded that he couldn't breathe. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said Tuesday that the four responding officers involved in the incident have been fired and identified the victim as George Floyd. Frey announced the dismissals on Twitter, saying this is the right call. Floyd's death Monday night after a struggle with officers is under investigation by the FBI and state agents. The incident drew comparisons to the case of Eric Garner, an unarmed black New York man who died in 2014 after he was placed in a chokehold by police and pleaded for his life, saying he couldn't breathe. Your thoughts? Actually, if we could start with Brother Spears, if we can get your assessment real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. So I've worked with law enforcement for years. So typically, when they arrive on a scene and there's a mental health crisis, they're not trained to assess whether or not a person needs to go, you know, to the hospital because of mental health issues. And they bring someone on who has that training. So I would go on site with police officers at 3 a.m. And again, I'm in Nebraska, which is right in the middle of the Heartland, and Iowa. I actually worked in Iowa. So we're talking, I mean, I'm only around white cops. I'm only around white clients. I'm only around white individuals who have this need. And and I also did ride-alongs. I did ride-alongs with several law enforcement. And, you know, when you're in the car with them, you hear what they say, how they think, how they really think. Looking for headlights that are out. Of course, there's not really a lot of black people to stop, so they're trained to orient towards the threat at all times. But after a while, you like forget that you're in a cop car even, and so you realize that at a physiological level and a neuropsychological level, their threshold, if you will, and I'm just talking about cops for a moment, their threshold assimilates even to a toxic level in the body. And so what happens is that, I mean, the more trauma we experience, the more our brain sort of disintegrates. And when I saw that cop with his knee on George Floyd's neck, I literally saw a man who was gone. Again, your left and right part of the brain do separate jobs. One part thinks, the other feels. And the more trauma we go through, the more distance there is between those two hemispheres. I saw a man who was not just disconnected. This guy was dissociated. He was not there. And that's what trauma does. It gets you to live in one part of your brain versus the other. You can think and you can't feel, or you can feel but you can't think. Now we flip over to the black community who are black community, they're not taught trauma, but it's their life. Their arousal, just like the police officer, is also oriented towards what? The threat. So when I saw that, and again, when I see the backlash, I see the burning, you know, of the precincts and so forth like that, I'm looking at all of this arousal And what's unfortunate about it, and I appreciate my man bringing up the scriptures, is that what Christ calls for is really really to de-arouse a situation. You cannot de-arouse with violence. And the brain is interesting. It can't be excited and depressed at the same time, right? It's going to be hypo, if you will, affected. And so you have people who are on tilt. I mean, society is at a point and it just needs a push. And what's unfortunate to me, I know for a fact from training law enforcement about how the brain works, and also the Black community, is that those are two people groups who, and it's not just ignorance, but it's uninformed. They don't understand how trauma affects you over time. Cortisol levels, adrenal glands are emptied, and people's ability to live in those types of conditions, again, that's an adaptation that becomes overdeveloped and over time obsolete. And you can't just let go of your adaptation. That's not the way it works. Your brain, the part of your brain that doesn't ask for permission, has been overdeveloped. And so that's what's so sad to me, is that I don't actually see in this moment a way to de-arouse the situation. And that's what scares me. That's where tear gas anyway, I could go on and on about that, but those were my initial thoughts.
Thank you, man. Definitely appreciate that. MJ, you definitely have some experience formerly being in law enforcement. What's your view on the situation?
Well, I was sharing with Adam Coleman and earlier today when we was talking, and I was telling him about it, and there is a lack of training, but in Fort Worth, Texas, I believe they were doing something pretty good called community policing, and that's where we would have the professionals like Brother Spears ride out with us. We would even have clergy riding out with us as well, where you would have ministers and things like that also riding out with the police officers. And there was an emphasis on de-escalating the situation. And for whatever reason, it seemed like right after 2010, we just, things started. I mean, and there were issues before 2010, but it just really started heightening right after 2010, where there was more militarized policing and less of an emphasis on community policing and things like that. So, I think it's a lack of training. What we saw earlier this week with Brother Floyd was horrific, and it was caught on camera for everybody to see. There was not an ounce of empathy. Now, even in my personal experience as a police officer, I had to pull another officer off of a guy who was drunk, and my biggest fear as a rookie out there working was that I was too calm and that might get me killed. But looking at it now, I think that if you're on the other end of that aggression pole, these guys are killing other people. But I just told the officer, I said, "Hey man, this dude's in handcuffs. Why are you cranking on his arm like that?" And he was drunk. He was intoxicated. We was just gonna take him to jail, let him sober up, and bring him back. But it's just so much aggression in some of these guys. And even when we was in the academy, one of the teachers said, "Hey, which of y'all want to go to the west side?" Nobody really raised their hand, because the west side is where all the rich white people are who will complain on you and get you hemmed up in internal affairs. How many of y'all want to go to the north side? Not a lot of people raised their hand. How many of y'all want to go to the east side? Everybody's hand went up. And he said, "Oh, y'all want to go to the hood so y'all can whip some behind." And this was a black officer teaching us, but he was talking in code where I could understand. But y'all want to go to the east side so y'all can whip some behind. So yeah, you got officers. You do have, and I'm not saying all, okay, but you do have some officers coming out of the academy, never been around a black person in their life. Some police departments don't require that you have a bachelor's degree. Some you can come and apply as long as you pass the civil service exam, you good to go. Some never been around black people a day in their life. But the idea that you have is that you're going to go to the east side of Fort Worth or the urban area of a city and whoop some behind. That's problematic.
Paperboy, your thoughts?
Too many of them. Now,
Pick one.
yo, it's crazy. So, like my man MJ was just talking. See, it goes back to individualizing racism. This is the problem. We keep pinning it to one person. This is an institution, and it's unfortunately engraved into American society. This is just plain and simple. It's plain as day. So now, what are the methods that we are going to use in order to combat something like this? Well, it starts off in small portions. Starts off locally. It starts off with conversations, and then it goes into action. Kind of like what the sister did today, Neff. How she put into some action a few things you can do to reach out. But that's the problem. It's not just one person. Just because someone is nice, that doesn't make them not a racist. Like we can't make those those conjunctions and those assumptions about these people. Okay, they're nice, so therefore they're not racist. That's not necessarily the case, because Thomas Jefferson had black babies. So that we can live amongst racists and not know it. And that's one of the main things that I brought up earlier about Dr. Robin DiAngelo. She breaks a lot of that down. So it's about the system, bro.
Cool. Hold on. Okay, yeah, Adam.
Yeah. I wanted to bring back something that I think kind of coincides with what's been said already about the, we spoke about individualism versus collectivism, and like brother Paperboy mentioned, Deanna mentioned, is that we continue to look at these officers individualistically. They're individuals, but I think it's important to understand that officers don't approach their job that way. I'm saying they don't approach their job that way. Because when you think, I've been working with the military for about the last 10 years, right? Actually going on 11 years. And I'm just working with veterans rather. And so one of what I call the ugly necessities of military, and I think this applies to police work as well, is that you have to develop an us versus them mentality. I'm saying it's really an ugly necessity of the job. I'm saying everybody wants to go home at night, and so that's where you end up developing this notion of like the blue line and that kind of stuff. Then they have to see themselves as a unit, and so when they're going out, they're not just seeing themselves as individuals; they see themselves as this blue unit going in as essentially an occupying, or however they want to construe it, but as a force together. It's a police force, right? And so that's why, to the brother's point, that's why you can have an officer with his knee on somebody's neck like that, who's completely confident that he's going to be all right. Like he's not going to take an L for this, because he's got 3 other officers right there that's riding with him. He's got the Asian gentleman, I think his name was Tao or something like that, bucking on bystanders and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Is riding with him, and he has some issues in his past too. This individual is clearly not concerned about internal affairs. You know what I'm saying? Because he done dodged a bunch of those bullets in his past anyway, if you look at his record. So he's not really concerned. He thinks that he's got them, they got his back too. He's got the police union that's got his back. They're all a unit. You know what I'm saying? And we have to understand, like we keep saying, oh, well, it's just a couple bad apples. Well, those couple bad apples see themselves as part of a bigger collective, and they're seen by their fellow officers being part of that collective. And so you can't just deal with those individuals. You have to deal with the collective. It's unfortunate. They have to have a togetherness. That's a necessity, but it becomes toxic when you take on this us versus them mentality, and all you see is blue versus perps. You know what I'm saying? Blue versus perps, and then some of those perps, given their color and socioeconomic status and so forth, they're like, extra perps or something like that. That you can certainly take advantage of, like MJ was talking about. So we have to understand, again, one thing and I'll leave this point with this, but while I disagree with him on a lot of things, one thing I appreciate about my man Cornel West is that he makes this point about not fetishizing Donald Trump. He kind of used this as an analogy, but basically just not pointing to any particular individual and observe and say, oh, this person or that person is racist. No, you got to take a step back and you got to look at the bird's eye view and say, well, what's going on here to where this individual can be highly esteemed, supported, and function the way that they do without any reprisal or repercussion. There's a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? And unless you're willing to engage the collective, we'll never see change, ever. You know what I'm saying? You can't just pick off a couple of individuals and think you're doing something. You're just chopping away at the tree branches. You know what I'm saying? We got to get to the root. And in order to do that, if you're not dealing with the whole tree, you're not dealing with the tree at all.
And I think to some degree also is looking at it not just from a physical, fleshly standpoint as well. Looking at there's something supernatural going on that's causing this hatred. I mean, the scriptures say that in the latter times the hearts will grow cold. I mean, it's not one of those pithy sayings that you just throw away. This is reality, right? We are followers of Christ. We are spiritual creatures, and that means there are spiritual things that are happening outside of our control that we can't, handle. I often think, I don't know if you guys remember the movie The Matrix, and he was walking down the street, right, and Agent Smith took over the lady in the red dress because he was distracted. I think sometimes we need to look at it with the spiritual lens, look at life from that spiritual lens, is that, we have human beings, but they are only reacting based on something that's happening, right? Because if you're not in Christ, you are now available to be used by Satan and by evil spirits to then attack not just themselves, but Christians and everyone as well. I think one of the things that really hurt me when I watched the whole video, and I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and one of the things that really crushed me was one of the last words he was crying out for was his mom.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that man that was on his neck, I know he heard it, but similar to what one of the brothers was saying earlier, was that he's just disconnected. He just didn't care. It wasn't in his, I guess, in that moment, in his DNA to even receive that, because all of us here, if you hear a man who is in cuffs, he's a big man, right, and he's crying out for his mom, you have reduced that man to a child, right? He's completely weak, and it's a complete vulnerability. He's just exposing himself, and when you hear that, the first thing you should do is not let me put more pressure on his neck, but let me see what's going on for a man to be crying for his mom. And then, of course, what he said was, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I'm not sure, I don't know if you guys heard it or not, and maybe I misheard it. Did you guys hear in the video saying, well, he wouldn't be saying anything if he couldn't breathe, or was that just me mishearing it?
No, that's right. I was going to address that a little bit later, but go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and that was all I had to say. But the fact that an individual, I don't know if it was that officer or one of the other ones who were on the side, but it's like, well, if he couldn't breathe, he wouldn't be talking. And I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, you can actually struggle for breath and still make sounds. So, I mean, that's all I kind of wanted to touch on with that. I don't know. What do you guys think about the whole spiritual aspect behind the scenes versus what we're seeing in the flesh?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I see. I look at, as a Christian, I look at just the world from that lens. There has to be a kind of like an arbiter of these decisions from a spiritual standpoint. And without Christ, I mean, we live in a fallen world, y'all. I mean, we all know that as apologists. We live in a fallen world, and at the end of the day, I mean, we can have these type of discussions ad nauseum, because unfortunately, this won't be the last discussion that we are going to have about this. It's definitely not the first, and it won't be the last. What does that boil down to? It boils down to the fact that we as Christians are accountable. We have work to do. We need to, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what color you wear. It is our responsibility to share the gospel. And just from a specific standpoint, there's just so many moving parts about this thing, man. I'm mad. I'm really frustrated at the blue community as a policeman and the black community as in us. And I think what I've seen over the years is that it's not individualistic. It's kind of like it's this group versus this group, and clashing, just constant clashing. And it doesn't, and we see individual cases, but over the past 2 days, there's been protesting here in Columbus, and because of hurt, and that's what it is. I mean, I work in mental health too, but to be a doctor in psychology, and it's and the underlying reaction is stemming from hurt. So what am I going to do as a black community? Because black people know how to fight together. I mean, we saw that with freeing, being freed and slave, and we got that. The church, basically a lot of the church stemmed from the fact that we wanted to fight collectively and find freedom in bondage. And that's a lot. That's a lot of the origins of the black church in America, and we know how to fight, and sometimes we can fight collectively for a good cause, and some a lot of times, unfortunately, and especially with the media shows, we can fight for a bad cause, and what we're seeing now, and what we're seeing the past protests and all, and Minnesota's burning up, and now Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, getting super looted, and black businesses being tampered with. I even heard something about cemeteries being looted, and it's like, man, this is the black culture's way to fight out of hurt. And I think and it's going to happen again. And I think the growth in this is what you said, MJ. And this is my wheelhouse as far as forensic psychology, community policing. I think at the end of the day, the growth is blue community, black community realizing that we are not opponents. We are not opponents. We need to understand each other, and ignorance can cause defense a lot. Because I don't know you, I'm ready to attack you. That's the reason why in crime, a lot of people are more likely to kill someone they don't know. But if they have an attachment to them, there's still some things in their mind, like you know what I mean. There's a connection there. But if I'm not familiar with someone, my gloves are off. I don't care. There's no attachment there. And so I think because there's a lack of attachment within the blue community, the black community, boom. I mean, we've seen it for decades. It's just constant, constant, constant. I was just watching the riot in Columbus beforehand, before we jumped on. We were talking about a little bit about it right before we came on, and I was so grieved, man, because um, the protest started with no justice, no peace, and then they started saying, what's his name, George Floyd, and it started to rise up a little bit more, and then you had and then they started to press it a little bit more, and then there were like wooden kind of things kind of shot up to make sure that the community isn't coming closer. And then that ended up with, and even before that, it kind of escalated. It was kind of silent and escalated, and then it became "F the police" chants, and then playing the song "F the police." And what I saw there from a psychological standpoint is, listen to us. We're hurting. We're hurting. We're hurting. Listen, listen, listen. And I'm going to continue to escalate what I'm doing because I want you to listen to me. I'm hurting. So from a black community, we're experiencing that, and we have experienced that for a long time. Listen to us. We're hurting. But I would challenge the black community by doing more civil means, by saying, I want to listen to you. I mean, we're married here. That'd be one thing, is me going to my wife and saying, listen, woman, you better listen to me. I got something to say. Rather, as opposed to coming to her.
That doesn't work? That doesn't.
No. I'm the CEO of my household, and I am very alpha. But no, there's no way. But at the same time, coming to her and saying, "Babe, I got something to say. I've got a real issue that I want to address and take care of, and talk to it with you." And I think community policing, and just really both communities spending more time learning about each other, so the attack mode won't be so prevalent within us. And I think that can be a way to forward discussion and forward progress within the relationship between policemen and um, and the black community. Because again, if this does, if we don't continue to scale back and peel back, this will happen again. You know, we can't sit here and say, okay, we're going to do all these things and we're going to create a solution this time. Like we can't be we can't be so delusioned to believe that. We have to realize that it's really two hurt communities pressing together and banging. And we have to learn to have a relationship with the communities together. And prayerfully, we won't see as many situations when there is a relationship.
Cool. Gianni, you want to ask something?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to piggyback off what the big bro was talking about. It's more or less of a question. Now, whenever we see, and worst case scenario, we come together, you know, we start getting along, we go down this trail of peacemaking. Now, what about the agenda with the privatizing of prisons? What about this agenda of locking more people up because people gotta get paid? So, like, will there be any interference in that department? And that's just something for y'all to think about.
All right, cool.
Can I jump in?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris.
My first like I got this habit, like when I'm watching something particularly that's excruciating, I start talking, like I talk to the TV. My first time watching a video, I'm talking to the other cops, like I'm listening to the bystanders, like saying exactly what's gonna happen. You're gonna kill that guy, you know, stop. And in my mind, I'm talking to these cops. I'm like, stop this guy. You know, MJ's story earlier about him and his partner and the drunk guy. You know, in my mind, it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I understand some people, you know, get tuned out. But to me, like all of them are tuned out. You know, all of them, because it's like 2 or 3 cars there. It's like 6 cops there. If remember, 4 or 5 cops. I think it was 6 cops, but 4 cops like directly involved with it. 3 cops holding them down, and the 1 cop that was over there kind of keeping the bystanders back. I was frustrated, like again, as I've mentioned earlier, that I witnessed a crime. A guy who allegedly committed a lesser crime died, and then a guy who literally committed a crime that was heinous got walked free for 2 days before they decided to arrest him. And then I was frustrated at the fact that, like, I feel like all the other cops that watched this guy do this, they should be arraigned for manslaughter. They were just as guilty for the death of Floyd as the guy who actually stuck his knee on the guy's neck, because it's common sense. Not only is it common sense, you got people literally there telling you. So I had a lot of anger and frustration for that. And then I wanted to respond to Chris Featherstone in Gianni's comment also real quick.
Okay.
Gianni's comment points out that the problem is deeper. And not only is the problem deeper, one side bears more responsibility than the other. These current riots, people haven't been rioting every day. Racism has been a 400-year problem here in America. 1619, right? It's been a 400-year problem here in America. And as far as I can tell, riots happen about every 20, 30 years, you know, after we became free and after we after freedom, basically since the 60s with civil rights, we've had the ability to riot with less consequence. Prior to that, all of the terrorism was committed against us. So you're talking 60 years right now, right? 65, it's about 60 years that we've had the ability to vent frustration in a way that historically we haven't had that ability to do. And we're still dealing with it. I mean, the list, this list of people, faces that we see that were unarmed, that have been killed at the hands of police officers, is growing. It's not shrinking. So while I don't condone the riots, as Martin Luther King said, what is it like? That's the voice of the powerless. To me, I don't condone it. I'm never going to participate in it, but I see it for what it is. It is a reactionary response to the mounting frustration of trying to be patient and things just seemingly not changing at a fast enough pace at the expense of our children, at the expense of our brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers.
Right.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that too because
Actually, before you piggy, CMB wants to piggy first. So
okay, all right.
it's your pig, CMB.
All right. That's a pork chop in the
I'm
building,
about to
right?
say, so
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to address something that SOC said earlier about just basically if you can complain, then you can breathe, right? So let's talk about that real quick. Just a couple things. I'm going to take just a couple minutes here to kind of explain myself. So um, for two things. If you are in a position, right, where and another thing that while this is coming up too, I read something earlier where I guess an early coroner's report was saying, well, there's some underlying health conditions, and that's what contributed to the George's death here. As if that's the only thing that happened, right? Like he just happened to keel over and die of a heart attack at the moment that the man had his knee on his neck, but whatever. We're going to talk about that right now. What two things, right? If you are going to do what's called a carotid artery test, right? You have to turn everybody actually on the platform for the sake of visuals. Everybody turn your head to one direction, just turn, right? Okay, and then from that position, kind of hold that position right there, and then look up towards the ceiling, right? That is a position that you have to be in to compromise the carotid artery. Y'all relax, right? Some people actually get dizzy in that position, right? That is indicative that something's wrong with the carotid artery. Okay, if you look at the video, right, and the position that George Floyd's neck was in, it's in that position. So when he's like kind of coming down, I can't breathe. Maybe it might not have been the right terminology. Maybe he was passing out, right? Whatever that was, his brain wasn't probably getting as much oxygen as it needed to be for him to live. All right. So we're not going to say that just because he used the wrong terminology that he deserved to die. That's BS. I'm calling that out. That's trash. Right. So let's throw that out right there. That's number one. And the last thing I want to say about that is this: if we're talking about any kind of choke, when I say choke, I mean like from mixed martial arts or that kind of thing. So you have a strangulation, you have a choke, whatever the case is, right? So if you do like a rear naked choke, you've all seen that before, right? And I've done martial arts in the past, training and stuff like that too. We used to practice that, and I put this into someone else's chat earlier today, and I was saying that when you yoke up on somebody like that, when we did our practicing like that with the live sparring, they said, okay, just do it if you're gonna the one being choked, right? Do it as long as you can before you feel like you're about to go out and attack, right? Your partner, your training partner, we're all classmates, we're all boys, we're all cool with each other, right? You release so that the person is not going to pass out and not be unsafe training, right? So that way you understand what it feels like, right? You understand that you don't go into panic mode, right? So you have that small window that's open before you're out, right? Bad things can happen if you're out. You hit your head, you die, all of that stuff, right? So we understand that. We also know that from that training as the person that's doing the choking, right? That you can feel when somebody can resist you, and when they're on the way out, you know exactly what that feels like. There's no question. There is absolutely no question. When someone is saying, I can't breathe, and all of a sudden they stop resisting, it's not a matter of, okay, have you calmed down yet? Because there was no have you calmed down yet, sir. Can we be done here? Can we get you upright? Can we get you the car? Just calm down. No, that man was gone. When that struggle is, and again, when we talk about that dissociative state, as Brother Spears was talking about earlier, this is all bad. You're not going to say that. You're not going to tell me that a police officer who's trained to do these kinds of things, right, and to serve and protect and all this kind of stuff has close quarters training, right, that you can't tell the difference of that. Horse crap. I ain't buying it. Not for a second, right? And the problem that we're I'm done. Y'all go ahead.
Okay, so it's safe to say, right, that actually hold up. Somebody want to share a quick link. So it's safe to say that we all believe that what we witnessed was murder.
certainly.
Right now, whether or not to what degree, because I think they charge him with third degree, which is nonsense in my opinion. But we know that it was wrong, right? We saw a crime committed in front of our very eyes. As believers, can we ask and request for justice? And what does it mean when the Christian does ask for justice? Let me give it to Spears.
Yeah, this is critical, and man, I just really appreciate everybody on this panel. MJ, I didn't know you was in the police force, and I look forward to hooking up with you on that. And several of you guys, I really look forward to getting everybody's information. But we have to have conclusion. So the brain, going back to psychology, and some of you guys, I think it was Chris, who is also into psychology as well, wants to create a beginning, middle, and an end to everything that we experience. In fact, when we sleep, our brain is creating that end or that conclusion. What trauma does is trauma prevents, when the brain creates the beginning and the middle, it prevents the brain from creating that conclusion. And where the brain does not create conclusion, it creates a reaction. And then it overdevelops that, and that becomes over-reflex. When you do not give people justice, that part of the brain that needs that, this is why a burial is so important. It signals to the brain, okay, transition. There has been intergenerationally so much transmitted through the years. There has been an unbelievable lack of conclusion for people. And I even go back to biblically. I can't remember the brother that brought it back to the Bible. Maybe it was Adam, but just Philippians is a great example. It says the peace of God. So it's kind of a play on words, the God of peace, but then the peace of God. And then it says it transcends understanding. That word for transcend isn't just comparative, it's superlative, meaning it's better than understanding. So the peace of God, right? And it's very important that you get that. That's better than understanding. To some degree, what I think people in marginalized communities are left with is to make peace with the pieces. Here's the problem, man. If you don't have Jesus as king, if he's not on the throne, you can't make peace with the pieces. Man, sometimes all you're given are pieces. That's what all of us really are given. This sort of disjointed narrative. And really the ability to make peace with the pieces comes from the God of peace, and that you get the peace of God. So that our brains are designed for conclusion. What concerns me is that depending on how this gets handled, and I feel scared, I feel sad, third degree murder, man, that represents a lack of conclusion. When people protest when they feel like they've lost their ability to advocate, when they've lost their agency. And so this is not going to end because people don't have conclusion. And there's a fine line. You asked for justice. There's a fine line between conclusion and justice. Again, the peace of God is about the cross, not about justice here on earth and its completion. And that's what's so hard when you don't have the framework of Christianity. Justice can't wait till Judgment Day. Judgment can't wait till Judgment Day. That's the problem. This is a framework that isn't just theological, it's philosophically necessary for marginalized people groups. Anyway, that's kind of a couple of the thoughts that I have with that.
Nice. Who else? What's it? Well, me and Adam, me and Adam, we've actually delved into this with the Aubrey situation. Like how do Christians react to injustice? And I mean, we can ask for justice if we understand what the Bible defines as justice, right? The word justice in the Hebrew, misfat, right? It's to walk correctly, upright. So when someone's committed injustice, they're not walking like God. And when that happens, that causes injury, and the community can request and requires remedy, right? So justice is a communal enterprise. Right? It's not a vigilante situation, So, as a collective, yes, we can ask for justice. There's no, in fact, the Bible's replete with seeking and asking and requesting for justice. So,
and actually, I would say that I would take it a step further, because I think the question, in some ways, depends on your context. And so here's what I mean by that. Let's say that if you're in North Korea, right? You're in this totalitarian state where obviously justice is not at a premium. It's not freely just given to the populace. In that type of scenario, a Christian, however they may have come to be a Christian, let's say you have a Christian in that situation, they can ask for justice. They can stand up for justice and petition to a wicked, oppressive regime to bring about justice. And prayerfully, at very least, exemplify what the biblical ethic is in that type of situation. But then there are other instances where I think in our context here in America, we do have freedoms and capabilities from a legal standpoint, from a community standpoint, to where we can go beyond asking for justice, but actually enacting justice. You know what I'm saying? And I think about, from a biblical standpoint, I think about the Apostle Paul, for example. I want to say it's Acts chapter.
Right.
I'm gonna mess it up. I want to say 15, but I could be wrong. But there's this instance where he was basically just wrongly handled by the authorities.
Right.
And they was like, all right, man, my bad. They was gonna usher him out at the back door. He was like, get out of here. And he was like, no. You're saying you did what you did publicly. I want a public apology. You know what I'm saying? And so
you gotta escort me out of here in front of everybody.
Right. That's right. You're saying, based upon his rights as a Roman citizen, he was looking like, I'm going to demand justice. Actually, in his case, right? You know what I'm saying? But if so that's one example. But then also in the Old Testament, I mean, all throughout the prophets and the law, you have God dealing with judges. You know what I'm saying? He's not just dealing with the king, but he's dealing with judges.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When Jesus is in Matthew chapter 23, he's dealing with the Pharisees. He's like, look, y'all are dealing with mint, cumin, and so forth, but you've neglected the weightier matters of the law. I mean, the Pharisees at that time, those weren't just like priests. I mean, they were people who were, community leaders, if you will. You know what I'm saying? They had something to do with the goings on of the community. And so we can have expectations and impose whatever influence we have to enact, demand, or bring about justice or whatever. And so I bring that around to say that in our current context, you know what I'm saying, one thing I am thankful for, being in America, is that we can do things like Sister Nefertiti, proposed, with contacting the DA or contacting your congressman, contacting, authority figures, and exercising all your civil liberties, right, to bring about, or as a vehicle for the biblical ethic of justice. You see what I'm saying? And in that sense, I think we can, fortunately, we live in a context where we can take a step beyond, even asking, and really be change agents. You know what I'm saying? For with that biblical ethic in mind.
Cool.
Yeah, and part of justice is equality and using equal methods and equal scales and things like that. There. One thing that has been annoying with this whole ordeal is the fact that folks want to bring up black on black crime and things like that.
Oh man, you know what? You just jumped the gun. Hold up.
Okay.
I was just hold up. Wait.
Well, can I say something before y'all go there? I mean, if y'all go switch gears, I wanted to say one quick thing, if I could. Is that
yes.
all right?
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I wanted to say something about before we switch gears about what Brother Chris was talking about, I believe, in regard to I think he referenced the civil rights movement. It was something he said. I can't remember how he phrased it, but I agreed with it. But anyway, one of the biggest mistakes I think that the African American community has made is misinterpreting the civil rights movement. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is we've been running victory laps over the civil rights movement for like 50 years now. You know what I'm saying? But the civil rights movement, the whole purpose was to gain access politically and economically, you know what I'm saying, that we didn't previously have. And so it's almost like if I were to give you the keys to a car, you know what I'm saying, and you can't drive, then you're still not going to be able to get anywhere. You're going to wreck yourself. You know what I'm saying? So likewise, having gained political and economic access that we didn't have previously, which should have happened had many of our leaders not been, had some crucial leaders not been cut off. What should have happened is that the follow-up to the civil rights movement should have been an economic and political movement. Say, okay, well, now that we have this economic access and this political access, here's how we're going to use it in order to build our community. You know what I'm saying? But what happens is, because we haven't, built ourselves up, I'll put it this way, because we aren't where we need to be economically and politically, then I think that we leave ourselves exposed to the type of incidences that we see with George Floyd. Because, if, I'll just leave it at that for now, because I can go much further. But I think that, when we look at how do we not have more of these types of incidents occur, I think that we have to remember that policing in general comes on the back end in society of a lot of other things, including economics and a whole host of other things. Policing comes on the back end of that. And we can't keep focusing on the back end, you know what I'm saying, trying to make corrections there, because that's reactionary. What we need to do is get on the front end about how policies are drafted and enacted. I'm saying, get involved in your local government. You know what I'm saying? Who's the sheriff of your town or police chief or whatever? I'm saying, what do you know about it? What is their philosophy of policing? You know what I'm saying? What about your city council? Shout out to my man Don Carey, who just got elected to city council last week. You know what I'm saying, here in Virginia. I mean, who are you getting involved in your local scene? And if not, and I'm saying this to myself, I haven't been involved like I need to be. I'm saying, but therefore, if something, God forbid, happens in my city, I have to ask myself, have I done my due diligence? You know what I'm saying, in this regard or not? And if not, then I think that I need to step it up. I'll just put it that way.
Cool. MJ, what about black on black crime, bro? What about it?
Yeah.
I got some thoughts, and we might have the same thoughts, but go ahead.
Black on black crime, in so many ways, if a black person goes out and kills another black person or does something crazy, there is a reasonable expectation that the prison population is getting ready to increase, because America has been good at prosecuting. Just ask Kamala Harris about her conviction record. So don't give me that it's a Democratic problem, because Democrats are just as guilty as the other side of having great conviction records and things like that. And she's evidence of it. So the prison population is full of black people who have committed crimes. So there's a reasonable expectation that if a black person commits a crime, they're going to do the time. The issue with this, and why we get so upset, is that whenever, and this is not just a police officer, but even with Ahmaud Arbery's case, there's always an attempt to look for a reason to get the perpetrators off. Oh, what did Arbery do? Or let's look up and see if he slapped his principal when he was in high school. And try to use that against him. What relevance does that have to do with him dying?
Right. No, absolutely. My issue with this particular statement is it's the knee-jerk go-to response to whatever a marginalized person speaks on a particular injustice. This is the go-to. This is another version of all lives matter, right?
It's another version of shut up.
Right. But the problem with this thing is that it's fallacious. All right? When something is fallacious, it is logically unsound. It's deceptive, it's misleading, it's disappointing. And it's disrespectful, because what you're saying is the subject matter that I would like to have a conversation with you about, you want to disregard, throw it away, and we should talk about what you want to talk about. So it's disrespect, right? And it's logically unsound. It's not sound thinking. You literally have to actually repent, right? Because the word repent, metanoia, change your mind. You got to change your mind. And the specific fallacy that they're guilty of is the two fallacy. You avoid having to engage with two coke. It's two coke or two. Okay. You avoided having to engage with criticism by turning it back on the accuser. You answered criticism with criticism, and we need to start calling people for what it is. When they do that, it's like, why are you being disrespectful? Straight up. Because I want to talk about this. Now, if you don't want to talk about my subject matter, then just say that. And either we move on or whatever. But don't just assume that you can just now hijack my conversation. So I think it's something that we should be aware of. It's like, don't let people do this. It's a sign of disrespect when they do the whataboutisms. You know what I mean? So don't let people do that. So that's my
I was adding too.
PSA.
I mean, sometimes depending on how it's framed, it can also be what's called the fallacy of relative privation. You know what I'm saying? Because just because something else is problematic doesn't mean that what I'm dealing with isn't problematic.
We could walk and chew gum. We could walk and chew gum. basically.
Right, exactly. You know, but one thing I want to say too is like and people might think it's callous, but it's actually it's kind of the point. You know, for those who are concerned about terrorism, you know, next time a terrorist attack happens, let's say if it's a Muslim or something like that, I'm like, what about white on white crime?
Yep.
You know, like, you know, next time somebody shoots up, you know, or does something crazy against the police, what about white on white crime? I mean, you see how stupid that sounds?
Right.
I mean,
or going to a cancer rally and be like, what about diabetes?
What about right? I mean, obviously that's obviously silly. It's not appropriate to do that. Why?
Right.
Because, like you said, we can walk a true gun. There are all kinds of problems in the world. Unfortunately, we live in a broken world. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not a fan of black on black crime. Obviously, I don't know anybody. I'm not a
No.
criminal. So
No, I'm not
I don't know
good with
why would somebody lob that at me? I'm not out there committing black on black crime. You know what I'm saying? So how relevant is that? You know, so I mean, look, all communities, you know, are broken. I'm saying all communities have issues. The reality is that you tend to offend against those that you're in proximity to. That's the reality. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And again, this goes back to economics, and this is why we need to think about what does it look like for us to build up our economic base, like to have, you know, those who are really engaged in entrepreneurship, bringing about jobs into these communities and things of that nature, so that you don't have as much, you know, desperate people out here doing bad things. You know what I'm saying? Like all these things kind of tie together. You can't talk about policing and crime without talking about the social issues within, you know, that are in the broader context, because crime is only a symptom. Crime is not the problem. You know what I'm saying? In any given society, crime is a symptom of the problem. You know what I'm saying? And so what you have to do is stop trying to treat the sniffles and treat the cold, treat the virus. You know what I'm saying? Don't treat just the fever, treat the COVID, and then you don't have to worry about the symptoms. You know what I'm saying? We're just so wrong-headed with it, man.
Absolutely.
Adam hit it. You know, he hit the nail on the head. Black on black crime is a myth. The reality is people kill people who are close to them. Most murders are people, the murderer knows the person that they murdered. It's husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, it's just people who they live in close proximity to. Because of the isomorphism principle, people generally live around people that they share culture with. So I think
You want to break down that word for us? That $50 word you just flung at us?
it's a sociological term. It's called isomorphism. So people choose to isolate themselves within communities of people that they share culture with. Food,
Right.
you know, they like the same food, they like the same music. These are
Right.
they move around and they do life with because they don't have to explain themselves. They just do life. It's comfort. It's isomorphism. So this is the reason why people live, predominantly why people live next to people that share the same culture, and this is the reason that crimes committed against people of the same culture are the same. It's probably about a 4 or 5 different percentage of margin. Black people killing more black people than white people killing more white people. I think it's like 84% white people kill white people and 90% black people kill black people. And I think that margin of error, the variance between the two, is largely due to the historical disenfranchisement of black people that left a lot of deficiencies and left a lot of collateral damage. So that's that piece over there. I did want to make one other comment because it generally, historically speaking, since the days of racism and even the days of slavery, toward the end of slavery, when slaves were advocating for equality, there were 2 different approaches. One was called upward suasion, and it's, hey, if we act like civil, then they'll just respect us. And the other one was like, it's like dignity. It's like, hey, we are equal, we are dignified, we bear the image of God. Like you should just respect us because of that. So these are the 2 different means. These are the 2 different methods that people would use to try to gain relevance and equality in culture. Upward suasion, in my opinion, has just been proven ineffective. There's been people all throughout it, and the reality is people in their ignorance and fears and prejudices just will not accept things that they don't understand. Just look at the Great Migration and look at how when African Americans moved to the North, where racism wasn't at, we got herded into ghettos, we got paid less money, we got denied equal opportunity jobs, such to the point that they had to change the law and force people to treat us equally. So that, to me, part of the challenge with this is us knowing our history, us understanding the history, the 400-year history that started with slavery, that went to Black Code, that went to Jim Crow, that went to civil rights, that came to what we see today with Floyd, and realizing this correlation. It's a narrative. There's correlation between all of that, and you can't, as Adam was talking about, you just can't address the symptoms. You have to address the problem. You have to address the virus, the illness.
Gianni, what say you? You there with us, bro?
Yo, what's popping? I had to handle something. I'm on this phone. I'm going back and forth. Yo, what's going on? My bad.
No, it's cool. It's cool. We was just talking about, Justice. Adam wants to take it. Hold on. I feel like I'm a switchboard operator. Hold on. All right, go ahead.
Now, real quick, I just want to clarify too. You know what I'm saying? Like, part of what I'm saying, I've been talking a lot about politics and economics. However, you know what I'm saying, I do want to be clear that there's other elements of our human experience, if you will, that we need to take back. Like, we need to stop allowing for Hollywood to create our narrative. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop has been weaponized against our community. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful genre of music and culture, and has literally been weaponized against us by the powers that be, because it's more lucrative to sell negative than sell positive. We have to be careful not to let the media dictate, you know what I'm saying, the narrative about us, you know what I'm saying, rather than, stepping up and dictating our own narrative. And what I mean by that, to be explicit, people say, oh, what about black on black crime? How come y'all say nothing about that? Listen, people say black stuff. People come out against black on black crime all the time. Right now, I'm wearing, shout out to the King movement. My man, Chris Broussard, you know what I'm saying? That's a nationwide organization with various different chapters who right now, I'm sure, are out doing, well, maybe not now because of the COVID, but up until the COVID, we're doing like mentor programs and, leading, different community, this community, that. I mean, I myself have been involved in community activities and so forth of a positive nature, but those things don't make it on the nightly news because it's not interesting to people. People would rather see a dead body or a chalk outline, and that feeds a certain narrative rather than, these other aspects. So we have to be careful about the media controlling the narrative, you know what I'm saying, and us just allowing it. I mean, look, again, I ain't trying to lose subscribers, you know what I'm saying, but I mean, how many Tyler Perry movies we gonna rock with, dog? You know what I'm saying, he can't get the wigs right. You know what I'm saying, he's always portraying us in a negative light. I mean, how long we gonna rock with this cat? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I pass.
I'm being funny to an extent. But I understand. Like, no, we gotta put out better work, man. We gotta put out. Come on, yo. We gotta change the narrative from the top down, man, or bottom up, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I have a challenge, and we'll probably bleed over to or go over to next week with this. And I think this is very, very important. As Christian apologists, this is a really fertile time to really share the gospel. And even from an apologetic standpoint, this is what I encourage anyone who watches this, and this is a conversation that I think we should extend. This is a really fertile time, especially with people like the conscious community using this as bait to come over to their side, because it's really easy for someone in the conscious community to say, see, that God that you pray for, where Jesus at now? Where's he at now? And that is really, that's the heart and soul of whatever it is. Like my brother SOC was talking about, the heart and soul of it is spiritual. So at the end of the day, are we going to stick in this moment, because this is a really unfortunate circumstance? Are we going to do something? Are we going to be proactive about it, share the gospel, and use this as fertile ground to even up our game as apologists and say, oh, no. Don't you dare use that as bait to bring someone to realize the God in you and all that stuff. And I think that's very, very important for us as Christian apologists to realize.
Yeah, Chris, is your mic okay? Did you put a filter on?
I don't know, man.
You don't sound like
the kidnapper.
You sound like Slim Thug.
You sound like a kidnapper. It's like we need 50,000 in small unmarked bills.
I was sitting here thinking to myself, is his voice getting deeper?
I was going to jump in on what Adam said earlier, if that's cool, man. About the media. I was thinking it was either 2017 or 2018. I remember because it was on my birthday, man. We went to Pastor BK met my pastor and some other brothers at my church. We went down to this thing at one of our local news stations, and it was a discussion about race in the media. Okay, And let me tell you, bro, we had one of the sisters that was there. She is a news anchor, and she talked about how the news gets on the news, right? I don't know if y'all ever watch like Mary Tyler Moore and stuff like that. They'll kind of drop nuggets like that about how the news gets on the news. There is a news producer. They
Right.
have all these 15 million different things that come up. Are we going to put this? Are we going to run this story? How much time are we going to spend on it? Would you have video for it? Whatever the case is. Now let's cut this one out. Let's add this thing in. Okay, we need a new piece there. This, that, and third, right? There's a million different things. I also took an English class about that. We call media English. That's another story. The thing with this particular incident was that the news anchor, when we talked about exactly what Adam said, that many people, including King Movement, including other organizations like that, have dating to street soldiers, all this kind of stuff. All these people have these wonderful programs, wonderful events, things of that nature. There's twofold problem with that. First thing, the one sister said, "Well, we don't know anything about that, so we don't put anything about that on the news." Yeah, you do, because people will go out there and call and say this is going on the news. Some editor or producer will be like, we ain't got time for that. So it's not going to put eyeballs on the screen and butts in the seats. That's just not what's going to happen. We already know that. On top of that, we also as Christians have this problem that goes on when we're doing good things and we say, hey, listen, why don't you bring the news camera down here so you can see? All of a sudden, the naysayers, the Hotepery is going to come out the woodwork and be like, yo, they're good. All they want to do is get publicity, so they get more tithers in the church and all this other stuff like that too. So I mean, you can't win in some of these cases. I understand that it is spiritual warfare. I understand all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, we have to recognize what we're up against, man. When we're dealing with all this stuff, a lot of people are not going to want to paint Christian and especially Black Christian men in a positive light, even though we're out here doing some stuff, man. It's just what it is.
Cool. And on that, we're gonna wind it down. It's 12:18. So before we sound off, I want everybody to speak about whatever future endeavors they're about to endeavor in. We're gonna start with my man Kyle Spears. In fact, me and you, we're about to do something pretty soon, right?
Monday, man.
Monday for the Patreons. We're gonna have Kyle Spears come in just for the Patreons. We're gonna have a special breakout session. He's gonna have a special lesson set up with a Q&A just for the Patreons. It'll be on Zoom or some other conference. This will not be on YouTube. This will not be on Facebook. This is specifically for the patrons. And if you want to be a patron, well, here's the link for you right here. So, but what else is going on with you, Mr. Spears, besides that?
Man, well, I really look forward to hooking up with the guys on the panel. I'm looking forward to that. But in terms of me, starting school, so I've been in theology school, but I'm doing my MDiv right now. So jumping out and doing that, that's going to be crazy. I'm starting a YouTube channel this autumn. Just taking the summer to get, content where it needs to be. If it's not where it needs to be, you'll get exposed. So, yeah, man, I've got that going. Got some other stuff going on. But more than anything, the channel, and then with you, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good, man.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna chop it up. Definitely. Thank you, sir. MJ Jackson, what's going on with you, sir?
Well, like I said, you and Adam, y'all have encouraged me to send my emails out, so I'm trying to get some interviews and stuff lined up for the summer and the fall. I'm also kind of trying to buckle down on school a little bit more, so those interviews will take the load off of a brother.
What's coming down your way?
Hey, so man, hey, God is good, bro. So as of Sunday, man, I will click that submit button, and I will be done with my last chapter of my dissertation.
Nice.
PhD dissertation. So
nice.
Keep me in prayer, y'all. This weekend's gonna be hectic. I'm gonna be writing. I'm gonna be using my keyboard ad nauseum and just frantically finishing up my chapter. So I mean, of course, there's there's edits and cleaning it up and oral defense and all that, but the big weight of my shoulders when I when I hit that submit button, I'll be done writing. Praise the Lord. So I'm at 100 and something pages right now. I don't know where it is, but
wow.
Yeah, man. So prayerfully, how everything's going, man. In a few weeks,
Black excellence, baby. Black
come
excellence. Let's
on.
go.
In a
Yes,
few weeks,
sir.
I'll be a doctor in forensic psychology, man.
Wow.
That's
Nerd.
cool.
Okay. Mr. Apologist in Detroit, what's cooking by you?
I'm chomping at the bit to do like a series of talks on the history of racism. I don't. I'm lazy, or I'm just going to say I'm lazy, and so I really don't want to do it on my channel. I really want to do it on somebody else's channel.
You want anybody else to do the heavy lifting?
And I shoot a 15, 20-minute video and throw it out there because I haven't gotten to the point where I'm doing all the editing and all that stuff. So yeah, but I'm chomping at the bit for that. Love to do that at some point. This coming Sunday, I'm going to be one of the representatives for the Lift Every Voice Coalition for Justice, which basically organized 2 days ago. We had a big meeting with a bunch of people nationwide, kind of sparked by the George Floyd situation. And so what I'm going to be talking about is biblical social justice. I'm going to be advocating that this is not something that undermines the gospel. This is something that this is not, in my case, I'm not going to be arguing that it's simply compatible with the gospel. I'm going to be arguing there's a sense in which it is the gospel. So that's this Sunday, 5 p.m. It'll be probably on YouTube, definitely on Facebook. You'll see some stuff about that. So you can pray for me about that because that's
Phil Fox is putting out his services for you, sir. So you might want to holler at him and see what's good.
Phil live around the corner. I can go to Phil's house.
Oh, there you go. That's what's up. That's what's up. Adam, did we do you yet or no?
No, not yet, man.
All right, yeah,
Real quick
go for
with
it.
So actually tomorrow night, shout out to Vocab Malone and Marlon Wilson. I'll be actually on Marlon Wilson's YouTube channel. I think it's the Gospel Truth. You know what I'm saying? So I'll be on there with Vocab Malone. We're going to be going in on Hebrew Israelite theology. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. And then also this coming Tuesday, I got Dr. Vince Bantu coming through, to talk about his new book, Multitude of Peoples and whatnot. So I got him coming through for an interview. Well, y'all be in prayer for me. I'm actually going to be on Free Thinking Ministries podcast or YouTube joint, and we're going to be talking about this whole George Floyd situation. So it's an intense conversation, man.
Right.
And I've been in it for a while. I was like, oh man, it's a tough one, but I'm getting that done too. Benjamin Hill is calling me out in the chat. So I'm not going to announce that yet, but I am going to be doing some game streaming coming up here pretty soon. So it's going to be a hybrid between apologetics and video game streaming. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Yeah, a little bit, man. A little bit. Well, actually, I guess I'll go ahead and say it. Y'all be on the lookout. So within the next week or so, we're going to be launching kind of like Q&A video game sessions. I'm just kicking back, playing the game, answering questions on really whatever as they come. It's kind of a nice way to chill because I'm not burning the count on both ends 24 hours a day. So, so got that coming up, and I think they've announced it. So, well, actually, this other one I'm not sure they announced it yet, so I'll just kind of leave that alone. But that's what I gospel gaming. That's yeah. So so that's what I got going on, man.
That's what's up. Servant of Christ, what's going on with you, sir?
Not much, man. Today was pretty cool because I got it done. I pretty much wrote the entire script for the whole tithing lesson I'm going to be teaching. I'm going to put it in video format. I was wrestling between whether I'm going to do the whole graphics and video effects and all that stuff with my Bible lessons. I haven't done one in a while. I've done a lot of live streams, so I think I'm going to go back to that. But today the script was completely written. I literally walked from the Old Testament all the way to the New Testament, explaining what tithing is to try to help people get pulled out of bondage from feeling, like this whole, you guys know, the whole prosperity gospel and everything. But I one of the things that I think people miss, they just focus on the fact that, it's about money, but it's not. It's so psychological because it really twists how you think about God. And so I really highlight those aspects. So today I finished the script. Now I got to start the voiceover, then the effects. And so, I'm doing things like that. And then I have a couple of really cool plans for the future of SOC Ministries. And so, I'm just happy to be moving in that direction. And as it gets closer, I'll start revealing a little bit more about what I'm going to be doing with the ministry a little more.
Nice. CMB, what it be?
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm just glad to be here. Great chat tonight, brothers. I really enjoyed everybody. Shout out to everybody in the chat room as well too. I The next big thing that I got coming up here tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to be recording a sermon that is part of an online revival. It was called, and it was planned last month sometime. And funny enough, it was talking about how to prayer during difficult times. And here we are, you couldn't
Difficult
have
times.
a more poignant way to put this. You got to put your money where your mouth is. It's not just we living this thing out, and it's in real time, and there's a human aspect to it, and we don't always get it right, but at the same time, we have a God that never gets it wrong. So we're going to be looking at that kind of thing. So just keep us in prayer. I got to record that tomorrow afternoon, and I'm getting old and all that stuff.
That came out of nowhere. I'm getting old. I'm feeling my mortality.
Right. So we gotta
That's
do all
funny.
that kind of stuff there, man. But yeah, I appreciate everybody. And just pray for those that are out here doing things. All of us, each and every single one of us. We all. I'll borrow a turn of phrase from Greg Coco here. That we don't need to be $1 million apologists. We need $1,000,001 apologists. And that's kind of what's going on, and we all need to be able to share the gospel. And I just pray for each and every one of y'all. There seems to be a paradigm shift in the passing of the torch, so be ready. Be ready.
That's what's up. Facts. So, for me, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who was there for the Michael Heiser interview. That was super fun, and he had a good time. He's definitely reached out and said, hey, he's willing to do it again in the near future. So I definitely appreciate that. Pray, I'm going for another big academic well, Gary Habermas. So I might be getting him on the platform sometime in July. Also, who I do got coming in July is Inspiring Philosophy, and we'll be discussing ancient African monotheism. So that's going to be super dope. I'm also trying to cook something with Bantu, right? So we're going to focus on. We did a joint on ancient Nubian Christianity. Now we're going to go up the continent a little bit into the north, and we're going to do ancient Kemetic Egyptian Christianity and see how that went down. You know what I mean? And of course, I'm doing a 3-part series with my people, CMB and Son of Christ. We're doing a 3-part series on the Sabbath. I'm lucky enough to have a former Judaizer and a former SDA member, and we're going to really tackle the Sabbath on so many different angles. It's going to be the definitive refutation of the Sabbath. That's the goal, right? That's the goal for. I'm setting the bar high. I know, but that's what I want. I want this to be the definitive refutation. So, yeah. Did I miss anyone? Everybody had a chance to speak? Yeah, right? CMX, you good? Right? So, so yeah, man. So it's again, man. I love nerding out with you guys on a Friday night. This is super dope. And yeah. So with that being said, it's the BK Apologist signing off. Peace.
Thank you.